Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 21 of the Operation Redwood podcast. Real quick before we get started, I just want to remind you guys of this event that we are praying for this year in 2024. The initial vision was something big and massive, and we were talking to these big venues. But the more I think and pray about it, I feel like something smaller and intimate makes more sense, at least right now. So that way we can really build stronger, more intimate bonds with the men that show up for this event. So make sure that you guys are signed up for the newsletter, because we're going to communicate a lot of the details through email. So whoever is interested in this event, I would give you as much information right now as I could. All I know is it's going to be in Illinois. I don't have any costs. I don't have any timelines just yet. If it's going to be a 1-day thing, a 2-day thing, you'll know as soon as we get that stuff squared away. But trust me, we are working on that day and night in the background here while producing these podcasts for you guys. So I would love for you to be there. Make sure you're signed up to the newsletter, because that's where we're really going to launch more of this content. So before we get started in the episode, I just want to make sure that you guys know where our hearts are at. And like I said before, if you guys want to support, we would really appreciate it. Head over to operationredwood.org. Click on donate, when you can give a monthly or a one-time gift. We would really appreciate it. And a lot of that is going to help set this event up. So thank you. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the episode. We'll see you guys later. Thanks.
So I guess a question for the table. How do you know if you're acting in accordance with God's will? Right, because at times we experience, the ease of flow, but then I've heard, if your actions don't end up receiving some kind of, backlash, if you will.
Validation or?
No, not necessarily. So if you're acting in, accordance with what the devil has, then why would there be any resistance, right? You're just going to keep flowing. But if you're acting in accordance with what God has planned for you, then you start encountering, these barriers to go about entering into stuff, So I've heard that, but how do you know when you're acting in accordance with God's will? Of course, you're reading the Bible and such.
Yeah. For me, it's when I'm reading the Bible and I feel like it's really aligning with, I feel that the direction I'm being taken to. And that's kind of how I base it. And then I ask you. Like, literally, that's on my process.
Yeah.
I asked our friend Brian about this. And then Samuel's another person that I'll ask. Like people who I feel like are more spiritually like grounded than I am. And I'm okay to admit that, right? I don't see any wrong in that. But that's where I try to run my thought process, because if it's only Angelo thinking and trying to make decisions off of my filter, I know I'm limited. So I have to ask men like you guys, like, what do you guys think? Like, straight up, the event that we're planning for next year, had a conversation with this guy. I'm like, what do you really think? He gave me his thoughts, and I'm like, yeah, like, these are things I also have to think about and consider as well. So I feel like God speaks to me through you guys, through the books that I read, the quiet time that I have with him, and really being intentional about seeking him first is how I feel. I get that.
So then do you move in like the absence of guidance, I guess? Because at times I know that we feel like a conviction, right? Yeah. Where you say something and then it's like, man, everything is just aligning to make this thing happen.
Yeah.
But then like sometimes you don't hear anything. And then you're just waiting.
Yeah.
Do you go about taking action in those moments, or do you just pause for even longer?
I think that as long as there was an initial plan, I feel like you work the plan and you just keep doing that until you get something else. Because if you stop, then everything kind of just stops. So for me, it was this podcast. Like I told you guys about that dream where everything got burnt down. And then all my accolades and accomplishments on the office walls were gone. And the only thing left on my desk was in my office was my desk and my laptop. And for the longest time, I was seeking, like, what does that mean, God? Like, this was such an in-depth dream. And fast forward, the podcast comes out. Then I'm like, okay, then we'll do the podcast. And we just keep doing that every week. We try, we get the equipment, we, stay committed, but you keep doing that until I get something else. Then at one point I'm like, God, is this it? Like, what are we doing? Like, is this it? Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know, am I doing something wrong? Am I not doing enough? Should I do more? You know, and I'm like, kind of like looking up, like, what?
Yeah. Give me a sign.
Give me a sign, right? And then I get to that. I'm like, okay, if 2024 could be the best year ever, what's that one thing that would happen that would make 2024 be awesome?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, and then that's where I feel like that idea of this event was planted, and I just went with it.
Yeah.
Until I hear otherwise, right? Then that's. But I like what you said though. If it's too easy, like what is it? The devil is that what it? If it's too smooth, essentially, the devil's kind of letting it go. Like the devil has a hand in it or something like that. Like,
potentially,
so, ish. Right. Yeah. I mean, like, but just even whether that be true or false, it's like it's something to chew on.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, Because for me, honestly, planning this event has been a real struggle. Mm-hmm. I feel like, God, if you gave me this vision, if you gave me this, why isn't it easier? Mm-hmm. Why does it feel so heavy?
Yeah.
Like, there's times where it feels like, yeah, this is it. I feel like we got that validation. Like, this is, God, this is what you want me to do. Mm-hmm. And then there's times where I'm like, the last couple of days, I'm like, oh, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. What am I doing here, God?
Who does? Who does know what
you know what I mean? Like, and that's just, I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's just where my process is in my mind right now.
No, I gotcha.
So for me, the first thing that I would have to check, right, is am I living in some sort of sin, right? Because the first step is living under God's will, right, is have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, right? First box you have to check. All right, check. Do I know God, right? Can anyone kind of shake my faith, right? Yes or no?
Oh, like make you think otherwise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yes or no? No one can shake my faith. Why? Because I've had these experiences that no one can take from me, because I've seen things, because I've experienced things, because things have happened at such a level of perfection in my life in the middle of the chaos. You know, it kind of makes no sense. But once you've lived it, once you've had that experience for yourself, no one's going to take that away from you. It's like, no, I was there. I lived it. There's no one can take that from you. Okay, check. So now that you're grounded in your faith, and now are you trying to seek God? Are you trying to get to know Him further? What are your spiritual aspirations? Right? Like the first thing is, I don't want to go to hell. Right? And then you get to know this man, and then you start to fall in love with this man, and then you realize how amazing this man is. Well, show me more. There's more. God is an infinite God. He can show you something new every day, right? Here on earth, imagine in heaven, right? So we have infinity in our hearts, and you mentioned something about being content, right? And so there's two sides to that. One is being content physically, right? I believe that God didn't intend us to be idle. So we should always be working towards something or for something, right? And when we do that, we develop a skill, right? We work on our gifts. We have relations with people, which is really the only thing that we're going to have in heaven anyways, right? That we can't take anything from this earth except the relationships that we've had with the people that we shared this life with. So physically, don't be idle, right? Do something, you know, like you're back in school, you know, which I think is phenomenal. I hate school, right? That's not for me. Well, I love developing my skills, you know, camping, you know, guns, physically working out, martial arts, whatever. Now, spiritually, our lives, that spiritual life is supposed to feed into our physical life. And spiritually, we are to be filled by God's grace. His grace is enough, right? Scripture says, let my grace be enough, right? It is enough for you, right? Enough means so many different things, but it means to be filled, It means to be content. It means that you're no longer hungry. You're no longer yearning for anything. It's you are happy where you're at. And that doesn't mean you're going to stop seeking God, right? We have to be in constant communication with God. And the whole point of this journey that we call the Bible is to get back to the Eden, right? To have that same relationship that Adam and Eve had before they committed sin, was to walk with God, right? That tells me that they weren't ashamed, they weren't afraid, right? That happened as a result of sin. So and that doesn't mean that you're holy either, right? Because otherwise Jesus would have not come. If you think you're high and mighty, and if you think you're righteous, and you think that you're the hottest thing since sliced bread, then you should have been on that cross, not Jesus, right? And so that doesn't mean we're not going to fall, but that means that when we do fall, we're going to immediately seek forgiveness for the only one that can forgive our sins, which is God. And obviously, if we wrong somebody here on earth, make peace with them. So as you have peace and you are filled and you are content, right, with grace, you have had enough, you are firmly placed in your faith in Jesus Christ, the Father, and the Holy Spirit, and you are not being idle, and you are working towards something, you are not in sin, and you are in constant communication with God, then you're just naturally going to say, oh God, this is on my heart, I want to do X, Y, Z. What do you think about that? Is this correct? Is this coming from a right place? Is this going to help me later down the line, or is it going to lead me astray? Right? Like I've said this before, some people are not meant to be rich, right? God wants us to be comfortable. He wants us to be satisfied. He wants us to be happy. And honestly, he does want you to be rich, right? But some people can't handle that yet because of their character. And they'll spend it all their money on strippers and blow, and they'll put themselves into an early grave, right? Yeah. Or maybe they don't know how to manage that money, and it'll just cause division in the family, or what have you. There's so many things that can go wrong with money. Just look at people that become instant millionaires with the lottery. They call it the curse of the lottery. So what does it mean to be doing God's will? That's personal between you and God. Don't be idle. And just like you run things by God, I think we should all be doing that. And God will bless the work from your hand. And just like we said, our gifts are not for us. What benefit is it for an apple tree to make apples? It's not for the benefit of the tree. It's for us.
Ooh.
Exactly. Okay.
In the words of Brian, filthy. Yo.
I'm telling you. Man, so both of you were tapping on, just being in constant communication with God, throughout your process. How exactly? What's up?
What's your process?
Still working through it, man. Absolutely. So, of course, prayer, and then continue just making some kind of movement, right? Yeah. And it tends to be that as long as I stay focused on, whatever my goal is, things just continue to add up, right? So it's like, man, God, please let me do at least decent on this test. Like, all right, I got to be. All right, from here, what do I do? And then you just continue on, and then step by step you start chipping away. And the goal eventually is obtained. Yeah. Right? But then that goes back to that, contentment for me. I'm never just content with where I am. I always want to be building up to that next step. Right. And, at times, when I take a step back and, I'm evaluating that situation, it's almost like, it feels like the curse, right? And it's almost ungodly, right? Because you're supposed to be able to be content in certain situations where, in the Bible it talks about people that are born eunuchs and people that are made eunuchs.
What's a eunuch?
People that were essentially castrated. Okay. Yeah. So the slaves, that way they couldn't go about having, ill thoughts and whatnot whenever they're tending to the king's spouse, Yeah. So the people that were made, eunuchs. So there was a gentleman, I forget his name off the top of my head, right? But I forget if he was made or born a eunuch. I think that he was made a eunuch. So he couldn't father children. And then that was one of his dreams, to be able to father children. He was working in the palace, and then as a result of his position, he was able to go about mentoring, people that were coming through the palace and such, and those ended up being like his spiritual children, right? So he couldn't bear, physical children, but spiritually he was going about being able to mentor these individuals and bringing them up, through the process and such.
Yeah.
So then he ended up being a father in that fashion.
Wow.
So it's amazing, but at the same time, it talks about that in the Bible. I ended up having to find the verse, but the person that can find contentment in that situation quickly ends up, getting a lot of, I guess, that load, lifted from them.
Yeah.
So in that fashion, I guess I fall into the American dream curse, where it's like, man, I'm always seeking something better, and when I get to the better, it's like, man, there has to be something more than this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
for sure. I get that for sure.
I always want, that next step, and I'm not sure, where it goes about stopping. Because, you have the neurosurgeon that, wants to cure, whatever disease, and who knows, maybe if they never cure that disease, then, they're never happy. So you've attained, all this status and such, and, you've been able to give somebody movement back in their leg, so on and so forth. But then just because you weren't able to cure that one disease that you truly sought to, cure, now your whole life was meaningless in your own eyes, And I guess that's my fear.
I think that goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. A battle to fight and an adventure to live.
Yeah, exactly.
It's where's the thrill? Where's the risk? Where's
Exactly.
the bigger concept beyond just me?
Exactly.
So that American dream totally falls into that.
Yeah, man. And I guess the issue for me, is you have this dream that you set out to go about accomplishing. You accomplish it, and then you seek to accomplish the next one. But when do you stop dreaming? Like, hey, this is just my reality. This is who I am. Are we meant to continue dreaming? Or does it ever get to that point where you're supposed to just be, content with where you are in life? And I think that, which is why I brought up the shepherds earlier, in the older days where, you had just these individuals that were working a farm and such, and, just tending animals and such, like this is life, this is the good life. I'm able to go about providing for my family, so on and so forth. But then when you live in the society that is constantly demanding more of you, you're forced to go about performing, you're one of the monkeys in the circus or not, the director of it type deal. Life never stops. It just keeps moving. No matter what it is that you want to do, it's going to keep going.
I think that's where, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that's where the question should be asked: who's asking you to perform? If you're still being, because society is telling me to perform, then that's not healthy. But if it's like a really God-given dream, and it's like a self-initiated, or not self-initiated, but it's like whose standards, right? If we're going based off what we see society doing, or based off I really feel this calling to this, I think you can keep going. That's where I think if God is giving this dream, if He's planted His bigger vision, once you get close to that, or once you accomplish that, there's going to be a next step. But I don't feel it'll be daunting, oh God, again.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
In a sense, there's gonna be ups and downs, right? But I like it right when you said that, when society is doing something, maybe that's it. Is society making me feel like I have to perform, or do I really feel like I want to do this?
See, and I guess that's where it kind of comes in for me, man, because in the society that we live in, if you're sitting idle, you could have a phenomenal job. It's like, oh, okay, so what are you doing now? It's like, well, I'm just doing my job. Oh, okay. And you're kind of looked down upon.
Very well.
You're kind of looked down upon, just for doing the thing that you might be comfortable doing. Well, you got so much more that you could offer. People are always going to tell you that, you have so much more that you could be doing. Why don't you, go about doing this? I like where I'm at. But people are always going to want more from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. No, aside from other people, I think that, first of all, the concept of contentment only is within yourself, so no one else really matters, right? I guess what is difficult is when you're feeling content, is that the same thing as you already accomplished your calling? And then there's another thing of, what should I be doing, and is that a calling? And then there's this other, you were talking about American dream, the curse of the American dream, and always wanting more. It kind of battles this whole idea of entrepreneurship, because that's all that you want to do. If you don't do more, you're never going to get anywhere. So that's where society classifies that. So it's kind of hard to differentiate a calling and wanting to do something and having a goal based on that versus this is my goal. And for everyone who knows me, I know Angela knows this part of me. I'm very strategic, tactical. Everything has to be a list, and look at all the pros and cons of everything, write everything out. And if you don't know something or don't have a skill set, learn it, perfect it, be a master at it. And I guess the hardest part with that is there are times when I can't read about something, or I don't have the knowledge or intelligence about something. And I guess that's where you were talking about move in the absence of guidance. So that's something new to me. And that's where I realize that God's wisdom is kind of making me okay, that's where it's coming from. And it's filling in that space of my lack of wisdom, you know?
Can I, is it okay if we dig a little into that?
Sure.
Because I love where you're at personally in your walk. I think it's so cool to watch God, like, kind of reach out to you in these different senses, and that you're at the point that you're not just seeing things as coincidence anymore, that you're like, yo, that's a God thing.
Yeah.
And I love it that you're going through that right now. But if I can ask you, if you don't mind sharing, like, where are you at with that? Like, with, you know, not being okay understanding everything right now, because like what we were talking about before, there's so many things that you want to understand, you want to learn and have it in a box and fully get it, but God is not able to be put into a box.
Exactly.
Like how are you sitting with that right now?
So it's very different, you know, with everything I've ever done, with school, with learning, understanding, reading, being able to, you know, offer my knowledge to people and teaching. There's this place where you don't feel content. There's this place of discomfort and uneasiness for me where it's like, I should know this. When am I going to experience something? When am I going to learn? Who am I going to meet that's going to teach me about this? And it's almost unsettling. And now that I understand to some degree that there's something more that kind of puts me at peace and at ease, realizing that aside from coincidence, like there's everything is purposeful. You know, like everything we do is purposeful, everything that's around us. But I guess the best way to put it in short, and I know it's a long conversation with your question, it's more a matter of you're kind of gaining truth outside of yourself, but it's for you. You know, just being able to, it's one thing to have knowledge and intelligence and wisdom and apply it. That's one thing. And
Scientific method.
And yeah, exactly. That's how my brain is. But to have some type of answer that gives you clarity and peace beyond the science, beyond the procedure that I always used to follow. You know, and it's very different for me, and it's starting to make sense. Like the truths are starting to come out. Like certain things that happen are more, they're just more clear. And I think a lot of it turns into, or is because I'm more open about viewing certain things. Because if you think about it, if someone's not open to faith or religion or even someone's theory about something, they're not going to understand anything. You know, they're stuck in their ways, which is part of the reason why I won't talk to certain people, because I know no matter how much explaining of a certain thing, if they view something a certain way, it'll always be that way. But if everything is just within yourself, you learn truths about yourself and about what's coming to you. So you still have to break it down scientifically, or at least I do. But at the same time, this gap in understanding is filled, you know, or slowly becoming filled. Because I used to be a wreck if I didn't understand something. I mean, you know, like I work on cars, you work on planes. Just the ability to know how everything works had to be a thing, but you realize that it's that infinite wisdom that someone else has or that God has is something that's far beyond what we can understand.
It's
But
okay not to know.
It's okay not to know, but it's okay to understand that that's what that is. That's what that gap is. That's slowly being understood over time and over understanding and through experiences with people like you guys, you know? Like it's fascinating. I don't even have a word for it.
Absolutely. Man, so just, I guess, becoming comfortable with going against the norm, man. Because I guess in my job right now, especially, you know, we go about doing things just because, you know, that's the way that we've always done it. So, well, why? That doesn't make any sense. You know, let's change it up, that we can make this process a lot easier. You know, it might be, you know, grueling in, you know, the first couple months or whatever, but after we go about implementing whatever steps, it becomes a lot easier. And I think that's the way that I try to go about doing life, man. In all honesty, I like to do the things that make me uncomfortable.
Yes.
And then, you know, see the comfort starting to build. And then as soon as I start feeling comfortable again, I got to put myself into one of those situations that I'm uncomfortable in.
Yeah.
You know.
That's definitely a pattern. I see that.
Yeah, man. So I guess that's the way that I end up going about living life. And I don't always do it, you know, intentionally. You know, I guess it's just as a matter of, you know, the person that I am. I've never liked to feel comfortable just because I feel like as soon as you feel that comfort, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. Yeah. And then it's like, dude, what am I supposed to do now? You know?
Just like that.
See, look, I got comfortable. I got comfortable. This is what
made myself uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, what am I supposed to do now? And I don't like being in those situations where it's like, dude, I have no idea how to go about doing this thing called life. And I guess that's just part of being human, right?
I think it's part of being a man. Specific. I mean, human, yes, but a man, like, again, we go back. We need to fight a battle. We need to be like, again, like that's what I feel like. He just continues. At least for me, he keeps clicking back to a battle to fight and an adventure to live. Like there needs to be that risk. You know, like when I did the whole supplement thing, the entrepreneurship, I was like, it's cool, it's stressful, but it's not like someone's gonna stab me in the neck stressful.
Yeah,
you know, like looking. Yeah, maybe I don't know.
I want the protein.
You know, it was never like someone looking into the eyes of someone that wants to take your life, that knows nothing about you, doesn't know about, you know, you're actually a good dude, you're kind of funny, like you got a family, he knows nothing about you, but he's gonna try to take your life. Why?
Yeah,
that's that, like, and maybe it's a little crazy, but like I miss that, you know, that risk of like I might
rush.
Yeah.
that rush,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I tried to find that in business and entrepreneurship. I'm like, oh, it's a rush to this business deal, and then we agree and we sign a piece of paper, and then like, oh, that was it. Are we gonna wrestle now?
Exactly.
Maybe that's the reason for the third point, and that's to do it for someone else, right? To find that beauty that you need to save. Because you can do the first two for yourself.
Yeah.
And at some point, you're going to be like, what's the point?
Yes.
But then if you could do it for somebody else outside of yourself, then you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm doing it for them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Let's
That's
see.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
And so I guess I would be curious, like what people would recommend to us in getting, you know, involved in that kid space, because I know that you have a buddy, you know, that, you know, is actively fighting against, you know, sex trafficking and such.
Shout out Matt.
Yeah,
You know, watch this, and I'm gonna send this to him. He's gonna be on. He's already agreed to. He's down to speak at the event or show up and
Yeah, man.
do his thing, because that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to support these organizations that are actually fighting traffickers, like actively out there, boots on the ground, doing stuff.
I'd love to be part of that gunfight, man. Absolutely. I'd love to be part of that.
That's you know, you know what I'm saying? It's hard because like in Illinois we're so blue.
Yeah.
And he said it too. He's like, it's hard to get out there. Like they've been trying to come out here. It's a challenge.
It's not even Illinois. That's the annoying part. You can go right outside Chicago, Cook County, everybody's red.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
Everyone's way more conservative.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Because everything else, think about it, it's just farmland.
Yeah.
You know,
Telling
it's just
you, man.
Chicago.
But these are the battles that we're choosing to fight. You know, real issues. The world, in a sense, kind of has turned a blind eye to.
Yeah, man.
You know, and that's what gets me excited all over again.
Yeah.
You know, like we'll wrap it up soon. But yesterday, So we've been working out with what do you
Plate carrier?
the plate carriers, like tactical plate carriers, putting on weight, and it's been like, dude, it's
brutal.
punishing me,
Yeah, absolutely.
punishing me, because I'm not like back in my 20s trying out for SWAT physical, you know what I mean, physical shape anymore, and I'm trying to act like it, but I'm like, I'm hurting. And wait, what was my point?
I don't know. Mine's got steel plates though, so mine are super heavy. I guess net at 20-something pounds.
Well, okay. So we were training in that. So my body's taking this beating, and the other day I'm like, dude, I'm really sore. I'm actually more achy. This is more painful than it is like sore. And then I see this video of, Tim Tebow's also one of the people that are fighting traffickers, and him and his wife read this letter of this girl that they saved in the Philippines of her, and they read this letter, and they read this letter that this girl wrote to them. And dude, it just broke my heart that this little girl had to go through that. And as achy as I was, like I'm like wobbling achy. I'm like, F this, I'm gonna go work out. You know what I mean? Like I just had, like I was just recharged again.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a physical thing because my muscles were still as sore as they were 5 minutes before I watched that video. But my soul and my spirit was quenched. That regardless of the pain or discomfort, people will be like, oh, well, overtraining or whatever. I'm like, that's not what it's about. It's a great example of like when you care about something so deeply, you will push past the physical barriers, the physical pain, the challenges, and still get it done. You
found that beauty to rescue
exactly
somebody outside yourself.
The beauty to rescue, and I'm like I'm not trying to get emotional just thinking about it, but when the letter plays in my head, I think about like, man, I would. The violent things I would do to people if that ever came upon my family, God forbid.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't even know who this girl is. There was no picture of her. It was just her words and her letter. But she just kind of, she wrote about her experience, and it just like tugged at my heart. Being a girl dad especially.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm moving. I'm like, this is the battle to fight. This is the adventure to go for. And I'm like, literally, and that day too, like I was already achy. I'm like, oh yeah, we're not gonna work out today, bro. I'm hurting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, same thing. The event, I'm like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is kind of crazy. Then that video, I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this event.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All over again. You get inspired.
Absolutely.
But you got it's that battle. It's that adventure. It's that beauty to rescue.
Yeah.
And it was just so timely. And that is one of, going back to your questions, how do I feel like I'm aligned with God? Is those moments where my strength is weak, when my body is physically broken and hurting, He gives me that strength. When I am weak, He's made me strong. And in that moment, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because these moments where I feel like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. But it's like, dude, it's not on me. It's on Him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, let's go.
That reminds me of an amazing quote. I wrote it down somewhere. And it said, whether we succeed or fail, we're exactly where we are supposed to be. And we should put as long as we put in the right effort and our morals are going in the right direction. And that was most of it. So the guy who said that, his name is Angelo Lilac. And I wrote that down. And I
think I know him.
And I wrote that down and re-listening
Wait,
to
did I really say that?
Yes. Re-listening to an old podcast.
Can't even believe it yourself.
Yeah. Yo, this man is smart.
That was the whole thing. I'm like, this aligns with everything that you've always been about, and you don't realize it.
Wow.
And I remember reading it over and over. I'm like, we have to realize that we're exactly where we're supposed to be.
Bro, that's a trip.
And then choosing where we put our efforts and energy and doing it in a moral way, is very important as well. And I think that's where people will make the wrong choices is, that moral, ethical portion of it is different in everyone's head. So
That's why the standard is biblical.
yeah, which is great.
That's what's
But
up.
putting in the effort is something someone will not do as well or choose not to. So But know that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I have to tell myself that a lot. But that's a good quote.
That is. Yeah, that was filthy, man. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even in the failures, man, there's a lot of successes that come from it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you said it just like that.
Damn, I was like, yo, who's this guy? Who is this?
Yeah.
50 points.
50 points to him.
Hey.
No, I appreciate you, gentlemen. This was such a great topic, man. Like, I can't even put this into one thing. We went. At first, I'm like, the title of this is going to be called Bunker Hill. But there's so many things that we talked about today, and I am just excited to edit this up, cut this up, share it with the world, because there's a lot of people, a lot of men that are going to benefit from these conversations. These honest and open conversations of where we are in our walks of life, how we think, how we process, the check boxes that go off in our mind before we make decisions. And I'm not saying we're perfect, but at least we give people an idea of how are other men doing life. And this is what it's about, coming together. Because I can fight my battle, but then we really start to make the impact when we're able to fight as a unit. And that's what we're trying to do, is build this camaraderie and take it to the next level. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for sharing. We'll see y'all next week.
Redwood out.
Peace.